Yo, what up guys? Welcome to a new series, and in this series I'm going to teach you guys the ropes of the most important part of the game, which is going to be the early lane. And we're going to be starting off with an early lane strategy that is mainly being used by strong early laners versus enemy early weak laners. And this strategy is called a 3-wave crash, aka a 3-stack. So the goal of a 3-wave crash is to pressure and beat enemy weak laners. How do we do that? We do that by stacking 3 waves, mainly the caster minions, slow pushing them and then making them crash under enemy tower. And whenever the enemy laner decides to get the CS, we actually get into opportunities where we can harass the enemy laner when they go for that CS. So they either have to give the CS or they have to trade their HP to get the CS. So it's a pretty solid, very consistent strategy in the early game to get a lead onto enemy weak laners. So benefits of a 3-stack are that we can harass the enemies under their tower when the wave crashes. Of course, we're going to be then punishing the enemies onto the caster minions. Another benefit of the 3-stack is that the bounce is on wave 4 or wave 5 and not on wave 3. The main difference between the bounce on wave 4 or wave 5, so 4 or 5, and we got 3 right here, is that when the wave bounces on 3, so if we do a 2-stack, it bounces on 3, the enemies are going to be able to work with a cannon. The enemies are going to be able to get level 3 first. So this is going to be very dangerous against a lot of early weak laners, for example, like Fizz that wants to go for level 3 all-in. A 2-stack can be very, very dangerous. But a 3-stack actually makes the wave bounce off on wave 4 or 5, which means that we're both going to be level 3. So the enemy does not get a specific level advantage. And there's no cannon wave. So it's easier for us to thin out the wave, which can then lead to the 4th point right here. We can hold the wave and force the enemies onto a bad reset. So if we take a lot of good quality trades and the wave is now bouncing back into us, we can keep trading with the enemies whenever they're trying to shove this wave in. Because the wave is coming back into us, if they're low enough, they get into this awkward position where they cannot crash the wave and they have to take a forceful reset and lose a lot of minions on the back end. That's one of the best things that we can do by utilizing a 3-wave crash. Of course, there's going to be plenty of examples. Final thing that we can do with the 3-wave crash is we can get a roam timer going. We can either invade with our jungler, we can gank a side lane, whatever we want to do, since the enemy is stuck under tower, answering the CS while we've already pushed the minions. So downsides of a 3-stack can be that we are vulnerable to early ganks. Because of the fact that the waves usually crash around 250, so that means that we're vulnerable to 3-camp ganking junglers like Jarvan, like Rek'Sai, champions like those that want to gank at level 3. We can be a little bit vulnerable to that, but we can make up with that with good quality warding and leaning, which is something that we're going to be covering in a different episode. Another downside of a 3-stack is that we actually lose trading power level 1 and 2. The reason for that is because if we hit the enemy, the minions are going to be pushing too fast and it's not going to necessarily be a 3-stack, but rather a 2-stack. And therefore it's also easy to mess up. So if we want to do a proper 3-stack, we got to get a very good feeling of the early lane and understand how the dynamics really work. So when do we actually 3-stack? Right, this is the most important thing, when and how. When do we actually 3-stack against enemies? We 3-stack when we want to punish an early weak laner, but we do not win the level 3 all-in. So if we do win the level 3 all-in, we can use a different strategy. But a good example for when we want to punish an enemy weak laner, but we don't win the level 3 all-in, is for example the Orianna versus Fizz matchup. So when we're playing Orianna, we win level 1, we win level 2 because of our range advantage. And because we can get the minion advantage as well. But once Fizz reaches level 3, that's when Fizz gets all of his abilities and he can actually get onto us, take this extended trade, and Orianna does not have the base damage and base stats to counteract that trade of the Fizz. So Orianna is best to go for a 3-stack and then let the wave bounce out. Because that way she's not going to be vulnerable too much against the Fizz that reaches a power spike on level 3. So another reason for us to 3-stack is when we want to punish an enemy weak laner and play off the bounce. So because sometimes in certain matchups we want the wave on our side, maybe we want to set up a gank, maybe the wave is just safer on our side. Can be many of reasons because of that. But still we want to punish an enemy weak laner a bit early. So another good example can be, for example, against Sylas, right? If we're playing any other early game focus champion against Sylas, we want to 3-stack, we want then play off the bounce, and then maybe gank him with our jungler, or we maybe want to hold the wave on our side and force him onto a bad reset. And then another reason for us to 3-stack is when we want to roam, invade, or tempo reset after 3 waves. This is mainly what you saw a lot in pro play, especially before the old minion changes. What enemies would, what teams would do is they would actually 3-stack on mid, as a Syndra, for example, and then roam down to bot to actually dive the bot lane with 4 men, because the mid lane was able to move down towards bot lane. Very solid, very strong strategy. And these are the main reasons why we would be going for this strategy. So how do we actually 3-stack? The way we 3-stack is we want to get a 1 to 2 auto attack advantage over the enemy laner on the first wave and the start of the second wave. Once the third wave comes in, we want to be hitting it because we want to be crashing it on the third wave. And we want to be stacking the caster minions. The most important thing is that we stack the caster minions because we're going to be bullying the enemies onto these caster minions. Be careful with hitting the enemies, but trading too early, and hitting the caster creeps, because that draws minion aggro, and that can lead towards your minions pushing too fast. So that's something that we want to avoid. And if the enemy thins the wave, we can actually harass them, because there's also going to be some times where the enemies will do absolutely nothing. Then we gotta hold back with our auto attacks. But there's also going to be times when the enemy is hitting the wave a lot. And in that case, we want to be harassing them and still keeping that 1 to 2 auto attack advantage for the first wave and the first part of the second wave. Because of course, if we harass the enemies, it will draw the minion aggro towards us, which is going to also indirectly make our minions push faster. So let's take a look at an example of a 3-stack. Alright, so let's take a look at this example of a very, very solid 3-stack and why it's so unbelievably good. So Orianna hits the wave once. She wants to keep the 1 to 2 auto attack advantage early. She auto attacks the Fizz as well, which slightly pulls the minion aggro. But what's going to happen is Fizz is thinning out the wave a little bit himself as well. Goes for the trade onto the Ori. Ori trades back. All these minions are now attacking the Fizz, so that's very, very good for us. And right now we just try to keep this very slow push. A bit of our casters are dying, but that's okay, because we're going to be stacking these 4 casters in the back right here with the next wave. So all we need to do is we need to push very, very, very slowly and only last hit from this point. Because the next wave is already coming in. We lost hit that one. We lost hit this one. We lost hit the next one as well. And right now it's the perfect time to actually get a good quality ward off. Because right now we don't really need to last hit these creeps because they're full health. So what this Orianna does is very good. She walks up towards top side and wards that stuff. Because Ivern is a ganking jungler, she could have possibly gone and ganked by the Ivern. So right now, what do we see? Our caster minions are stacked up right here. There's some more right here. And we want to be crashing these under the tower. So that's exactly what this guy's going to be doing. Right now, we're going to be pushing, using our abilities onto the wave and also onto the Fizz, because we want to be trading. Harassing the Fizz in the meantime. And what we're going to be seeing right here is that the wave is now going to crash. So what we're going to do is we're now going to bully Fizz. And whenever he goes for the CS or whenever he tries to out-attack something, we're just going to be pressuring this Fizz with our abilities. And right now, as you can see, Fizz is dropping a little bit lower. Fizz is getting a bit desperate and tries to trade back. And we're completely fine with this because we got so many minions hitting him here. And what we can see right now is Fizz actually has the same amount of minions as we do. But it's closer to his tower, which means that the wave now bounces back into us. And as we can see, Fizz is really, really low on resources. So because Fizz is so low, and the wave is bouncing back into us, we're going to be able to pressure this Fizz. So the wave is now bouncing. We are not touching the wave at all, so it's slowly coming into us. And Fizz realizes that he's in a really messed up position because he realizes that he cannot really do anything with this wave. He can never crash it because we are very high on HP. He doesn't have any threat upon us. So right now, we actually deny Fizz all of this farm because Fizz now has to reset. Look how much farm that he loses. He loses a full wave. He loses the beginning of the next wave as well. So basically loses almost 1.5 waves. That's insane. Losing more than a wave in the early game, it's a lot. Especially if we take a look at the CS numbers right now as well. 15 CS difference, that's really massive. And that's exactly how we want to be bullying these early weak laners. And all these traits are completely fine because we want to be resetting on Orianna anyway and TP back. That's exactly what this guy is doing. And this guy just won the lane by beautiful early wave management. Absolutely textbook. All right, so now let's take a look at an example of a not so well done early game plan by this Orianna. So what we see is this Orianna actually goes for a 2-wave crash in this game because he's been out attacking the minions too much. So Fizz can literally just let the wave come into him. He is sacrificing a few creeps and stuff, but he doesn't really care about that. He just looks to stay healthy and trade onto this Orianna. So this Orianna now crashes wave 2. Fizz is completely chilling because he knows he's in a good position right now. So he catches as much farm as he can while staying high health because he's going to trade a little bit of this CS to stay high health and actually look to trade onto this Orianna. So he gets this beautiful Electrocute proc, very good trade. And right now what we see actually is he's not pressured enough yet. He's going to reach level 3 right here on the next minion. And with him reaching level 3 right here, same as Orianna, Orianna is now on the long lane. And because Fizz is not pressured enough and the wave's not pushing fast enough back to into Orianna, he can actually pressure this Orianna and force this Orianna onto a pretty bad reset. And this is exactly why if you are not winning the level 3 all-in like this, it's better to 3-stack than to go for 2-stack because then you deny this assassin an opportunity to make use of their level 3 power spike. So if we're ever in this position, keep in mind, we want to be 3-stacking into instead of 2-stacking. 2-stacking has other very good benefits, but that's something that we're going to be covering in a different episode. All right, so in this example, I'm playing against an Akali. And this Akali actually tries to tin the wave and tries to deny me a solid 3-stack. And what I actually have to do therefore is I have to put more pressure onto the Akali, more pressure onto the wave, to make sure that I can actually still crash on wave 3. And that's exactly what we see right now. I auto-attack the front minions once. I see that he's thinning a bit already, so I can afford to auto-attack him here and there when he looks to last hit. And that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. I don't want to harass him too much because I don't want my wave to push too fast. But right now I see actually I'm counting my minions. It's pretty even. So right now I've got a little bit of room to harass this Akali to make sure that I'm still going to be able to crash on wave 3. So he walks up, do a few auto attacks, a little bit of trading onto this Akali. And the waves are now slowly pushing into this Akali. We're stacking these caster minions right here. That's exactly what we're going to be doing. I get a little bit more poke onto her. Lose a bit too much HP from the enemy minions, but that's okay. So this next wave is the wave that I want to be getting in. I want to be getting in this ASAP. Akali is thinning it out. She's thinning it more and more and more. That means that I want to be really auto-attacking these minions as much as possible to get it in. And as we can see, because I auto-attack so much, I actually get it in at a pretty decent timer right here. Nice QE on the back end. And this puts me in a pretty solid position to actually harass this Akali onto these minions right here. So even if the enemy decides to thin the wave out, we can actually match that by going for more trades and more auto attacks onto the minions to still keep that pressure going, stack those caster minions, and look to harass the enemy under the tower. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to hit me up. This is a pretty complicated topic. It's very hard to get stuff like this consistent and right, especially if you're doing it for the first time. So let me know if you guys have any questions and I will definitely get back to you. Otherwise, I thank you guys for watching and we'll see you next week with the next episode of this series. Bye-bye.